welcome to Real Talk, Realtor Mama edition. My name is Samantha. I'm a top real estate agent, entrepreneur, and proud mama of two, here to keep it real about life, business, and everything in between. This is the podcast where we explore challenges and blessings of balancing a thriving career, motherhood, and mental health, all while sharing tips, lessons, and stories to inspire and empower you. Some episodes, I'm joined by incredible guests, experts in finance, motivation, small business owners, and more to bring you insights that'll spark growth and ignite your potential. Sometimes it'll just be me and my strong opinions rambling away. But most importantly, I'm doing this for my own healing and learning and as my way of giving back. If my words or the stories shared here help even one person, then it's worth it to me. So grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and let's dive into today's Real Talk.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Real Talk, Realtor Mama edition. Today, I'm sitting down with my own financial advisor, Billy Zerillo, the guy who's completely changed the way that my mom and I approach our finances. He's unlike a traditional finance advisors who jump straight into like investments and big picture planning, because Billy isn't afraid to start from square one with people, which is really what I appreciate about him. Helping people, pay down debt, create a budget, and truly take control of their money. So today we're going to be talking about his Purpose Power Planning program. And it's all about building wealth in a way that aligns with your values, breaking through limiting beliefs, and making intentional financial decisions. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed by money talk or unsure where to start, this episode is definitely for you. Get ready for a real, no judgment conversation about taking charge of your financial future. All right, so Billy, hello.
Hello.
I'm so excited to have you today, and I can't wait to share some of the valuable lessons and things that you've taught me about finances and how to view them, and the different perspectives that you've given me in regards to finances. I really am excited to share that with everyone. And today's actually a good day for it because tomorrow I'm going to my high school, and they have this thing called What's Your Passion Festival. And it's basically they invite alumni from all the way back to, I think the school opened in like the 70s or something. So there's alumni that come and they talk to the kids about their different career paths. So there's, people in finances, there's people in, the music industry, and people in, real estate and business, accounting. They're talking to we're talking to the kids at this school because, I don't know, Academy Park, I don't know if you've heard of Academy Park, but usually if you have, it's not the greatest things, it's not the best high school, I guess you could say. And it's sad. It's really sad because these kids they're not set up for success. Yeah. And I can't wait to share my podcast with them because I want them to listen to this episode in specific and start to hopefully reframe their mindsets about finances and how to look at them and all of that from a young age. I really think this is the kind of stuff that needs to be taught in high school. So I have my notes here, but I am kind of going off the path. I told you before we even started, this is not going to be the fanciest podcast you'll ever be on. I even showed you my whole podcast kit that I have in the closet that was like, I don't know, a couple $100 that I'm not even going to use. I can't figure it out. So we're keeping it real and we're keeping it simple. But why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do, how long you've done it, whatever you feel like telling us, and then we'll kind of get into things.
Yeah. So thank you so much, first of all. I just love the opportunity just to obviously share a little bit about what I do, but why I'm so passionate about it. And just what you're talking about with your high school, like that's the kind of stuff that gets me really passionate about, like just helping the next generation and stuff like that. And for those that don't know me, my name is Billy Zerillo. I am a financial advisor, but like you said, I'm not your traditional financial advisor.
No.
When you think of financial advisor, no offense to anybody, but you think of like old white guy, right? Basically is what you think of. And you think about like investing money, which is, that is a part of what I do and help clients do, is invest their money. But it's not just, like you said, investing their money for 30 years down the road, because there are things that people want to accomplish this year, in 5 years, in 3 years. And so it's really comes down to helping people be intentional with their money. Because we're taught how to make money, right? We taught how to spend money, but we're not really taught how to be intentional with the money that we make. And, just to share this quick stat, because I think this is important, especially for the high school kids that you're going to be talking to, is that, it doesn't really matter how much money you make, because if you're not intentional in the way you spend it, it won't matter how
Yeah.
much money you make, because you'll still be broke.
Yeah,
right?
you're not ever going to be rich.
You're
Like,
not going to be rich. You might be rich on your pay stub, but
Yeah.
but you have nothing to show for it in the bank account, because you're not intentional. And so, I like to tell people, I primarily work with like women entrepreneurs in business. That's just where my passion lies. And I know we'll get into my story, because I think, again, going back to that whole idea of how I'm a different financial advisor, I really want to help people understand how they think about money, how they feel about money, and what their story, what it was like growing up as a kid, because all those experiences, all those life experiences are going to play a massive role in how you make money, how you manage it, the choices that you make, the relationships that you have with it. So that's so important.
I think that is such a good point to make, because I mean, well, first of all, going back to like what you think about when you think like financial advisor, like let me just say, like, I never thought I would even ever work with a financial advisor. I mean, my people just have a and I don't know what's the word, stigma or something, or just I thought, a white guy, I got to be rich to work with them. I got to
Yep.
have lots of money, like I got to have money to invest. And where I was when I started with you was definitely not in that position. And I remember like our first appointment together, it almost felt like a therapy session. And it was different, but it was not what I was expecting in such a good way though. And I was so nervous. I was like, I don't even know why I'm gonna like waste this guy's time. I'm literally like, I don't know, what was I like $50,000 in debt? I mean, literally, like almost 50 grand in debt. What, a year ago? And I was like suffocating. And I just remember like getting to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't have anything to lose. Let me just waste his time. Let me just have the consult, see where it goes, see if he thinks that he could, help me. And I remember crying. I remember talking about stuff I didn't know I was going to be talking about, but then we got like down to the nitty gritty of things, and I felt really good after the appointment, and here we are, like I don't know when we really started, maybe like a year or so ago, actually working closely together, and I mean my debt is almost all gone. Like it's definitely significantly in a decrease, and I remember talking to you that first conversation, and I was like, this is impossible. It's literally impossible. I was like, I don't even, but you made me feel capable.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing too, with like, even if you go back to like my first episode, when I said I talked to my mortgage lender, she made me feel capable. That is such a big piece. Like I think that's why one of the reasons why you're so good at what you do is you empower people and you make them feel capable. And like, I came to you with like less than nothing, and I'm getting back on my feet now. And like, even after the first conversation, even though I was still 50, I felt like I had a plan and I could attack it, and I could in little pieces, and boom, like, so thank you for that. Thank you for letting me cry. But so let me see. All right, where are we at here? So like I said, our first appointment, it kind of felt like a therapy session, but I quickly realized that you had a different approach to things, and that you had an actual like why behind you do like why you do what you do. So, me, I came from a single parent household. I had a single mother, and there was no talk about finances. The only talk about finances was like, we don't have the money for something, so why are you doing, like, how did you get into this? And, what is your why?
Yeah. So I love what you said there. That, I mean, the finance side of things, the numbers, right? The technical side of money is very easy because it's logical. But as humans, we don't think logically. We think very emotionally. Every decision that you will ever make has some emotion tied to it, whether that's a negative emotion or whether that's a positive emotion, right? You can spend money in both emotions. You can be very happy and spend a ton of money. You can be very sad and spend a ton of money, right? And so, like, when I think about why I do what I do and the way I do it, is because I had to overcome my own story with money, right? Like, my mom and dad got divorced when I was a very young. And I don't ever remember them talking about, and I use the word talking loosely, it's more arguing. All I remember them doing was arguing about money.
Right.
And that led me to have a very negative outlook on money. I feared money. Like, it was very just a weird kind of, like, I was afraid to have it and I was afraid not to have it. So I
Yeah.
was kind of in this weird limbo. And so that led me to do is not make any decisions, which is just as bad as making a bad decision, not making any decision. And it led into other aspects of my relationships with, my wife and stuff like that. And finally I realized that, like, after getting into the industry and seeing what was going on in my own finances, I was like, I'm making a lot of decisions based off old wiring,
Yeah.
right? Like, think about, like, going back to what you do, right? Old wiring in a house, you got to replace it, right? Because it could
Right.
burn down the house. You have to replace that wiring. And so I started to really lean into that, right? Because if I can help you understand the way you think about money and help you overcome those, like you said, I felt possible. I felt hope. I felt possibility. And that's all you needed. You already
Yeah.
had everything inside of you to be great. You
Right.
just needed someone to be like, hey, you can do this. Here's the path. It might suck for a little bit, but, like, there's a path for you to get debt free or to save money.
Yeah.
It's just, why is that important to you, right? And getting down to it. So when I got into the industry and, like, started sitting in front of, like, especially, women and moms, and I started to see, like, I started to see my mom sitting across the table, like, the struggles that she went through. And I was like, the industry as a whole has not done a good enough job of helping people understand their money.
Yeah.
Or educating people. And an educated person on money makes better decisions.
Right.
I feel like it's my job to help educate and help you understand how you think about money. Once we have those things squared away, we can figure out the easy
The
part.
logistics.
Hey, you need to put your money over here or over here. Like, that's the easy part. The understanding the why behind it is what we have to uncover.
That's the real work.
That's the real work. Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, I think you touched a little bit there on, like, because I was going to say, why do you think that you lean in towards specifically aiming to help women?
Yeah.
But so I'm guessing, after the divorce, you saw your mom struggle a lot.
Yeah.
And that was just a motivator for you. I can relate in the fact that I love to sell a single mother a house. I love to. It's like the best thing ever because, like you said, you kind of see your own mom in them, and it's a full cycle kind of thing.
I think one thing I want to bring up, especially with what you think about moms, right? And what are moms? Moms are everything, right? They're your therapist, they're your cook, they're your they do everything.
Yeah.
Right? But they never take time for themselves. Right? And if you can't take time for yourself and self-care and self-love, you're not going to be able to love the people around you very effectively. And so,
Absolutely.
like, I started to see that as a big hurdle for women, and I think that just played well into, like, how I want to advise people. And like you said in that first meeting, I don't think the only thing we really talked about was your debt. Other than that, we talked about, like, your why. We talked about why you want to be better at finances.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it wasn't what I expected to be talking about. But it's what I needed to talk about because that's what I needed to. It all boils down to that.
Yeah.
And that's the motivation that I needed. And like I said, the hope that I needed to just do what I had to do.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about your purpose power planning program and how it helps people, build wealth while staying true to their values. Is this something that you kind of created yourself, or what exactly is it?
Yeah, so the Purpose Power Plan is something that I created because, for the simple fact, going back to, like, the behavioral side of money, I saw that the industry that I was in, it was very transactional, right? Like, you have money, I'm going to invest it for you, and that's the extent of our relationship.
Right.
And so, but what I started to notice as because I've been in the industry for 7 years,
Okay.
right? And so for the first couple of years, I did what every advisor does and just talk about investments, talk about retirement. And when I started to talk to people, about those types of things, there were other issues that were coming up. There
Yeah.
were other things that they wanted to do. And there were things that were holding them back, especially if you're making good money, right? In this sense, they were still holding those people back from something.
Yeah.
And so when I read a book that was called The Psychology of Money,
Okay.
and I cannot remember the name of the author, but it's a book that I read at least every other year, if not every year.
Really?
And it's that good, and it just goes through, again, going back to the emotions behind money. Like when I was talking about, we make decisions based off our negative emotions and our positive emotions. And most people buy emotionally, right? Like when they buy a house, that's a very an emotional thing. When they sell a house that they've been living in for 20 years,
Absolutely.
that's an emotional thing, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, so when I started to understand that, and that's when I created the Purpose Power Plan. And the first meeting that I take people through is called the awareness meeting.
Okay.
And we bring awareness to what you're, what, who you are as a person, what past experiences did you have in your life that have led you to feel the way you do about money? What does money actually mean to you?
Yeah.
What does wealth mean to you? Because those are two different things. Money and wealth are two different
And
things.
they mean different things to
Different people.
Yeah.
And that tells me a lot about how to advise people, right? Because personal finance is personal for a reason, right? Your wants and desires are completely different from my wants and desires, and that what makes us great. But every plan is going to be different. So, that's probably the biggest difference between me and a regular financial planner is that I want to understand how you tick.
Yeah.
Because it helps me be a better
Come
advisor.
up with plan.
Yeah, the strategy, the products, the accounts, just it helps me make a well-rounded plan that's targeted to you.
And we haven't even like we haven't even me and you meaning I haven't even started really investing yet.
Yeah.
Because in my story, in my situation, I can't start. I needed to start with tackling the debt, and then
The foundation.
the foundation, exactly, building that foundation, and that's what I think so many people don't know how to do. They don't know how to build the foundation, but they are out here willy nilly putting money in this account and investing here and doing what Bob told them to do over there.
Yeah, they're doing what society tells them to do, but they don't know why to do it.
Yeah, and there's no foundation. So speaking of foundation, and this again isn't in my notes, but something that I feel like is important. So one of my next steps in our process, in my process, in getting my life together, my finances together, is building that the buckets. Can you explain the buckets really quick?
Yeah, I love the buckets. It's such an easy way to. So I explain things to people in a way that I understand them.
Yeah.
Because in the world that I live in, the finance world, there's a lot of jargon. There's a lot of just like high level stuff. A lot of people trying to talk over your head. So I often will try to explain things in ways that like before I was in the industry, how would I understand this, right?
Exactly.
And so like when you think about buckets, right? You think of, in this case, there's many buckets that you can fill, but I'm going to talk about three primary buckets, right? So we have the bucket system where we have an emergency fund. We have a midterm account, which is like something I want to spend money on in the next couple of years, and then your retirement. And really, the bucket system is like, all right, what bucket do we need to fill first, right? And once we fill that bucket, you don't overfill a bucket, right? You're like, oh, once this bucket's full, I can go grab another bucket to fill, right? And so, like for you in your instance, right, it's like, okay, we tackle the debt. What's the next bucket we need to fill? All right, we need to fill an emergency fund so that if an emergency happens, you don't have to use a credit card. You don't have to dive into a retirement account or stocks.
That's the thing that I feel like right there is that stops people. It's like, oh, I paid my debt off, everything's great. Well, guess what? If your foot gets around, I don't know, like something happens tomorrow.
Insurance doesn't cover copay.
Exactly.
Right?
And you need to pay a copay or something. I had to take my dog to the vet a few weeks ago, and you know what? We almost had to put that on a credit card. But so yeah, that's the one thing, the one key piece that I think that, and even me and my mom were so wired, very similar when it comes to finances, because obviously she had me very young. She had me at 17, and we kind of grew up together in a lot of ways. And she's just starting to really become aware of her finances, and that emergency bucket now is something that we never had. And that's why people who don't have it, they always feel like they're taking one step ahead and then five steps backwards when
Yeah.
something happens.
Yeah. It's when somebody tells me, like, I listen to what people say in the car as far as like what emotion they're feeling. Like when you told me I feel like anxiety, I feel not secure, right? When I hear those types of words, I know that first bucket isn't at a place where it's comfortable for you.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like we need to address that, because if I don't address that first need with you, that you feel secure, it won't matter how much investing we do
Exactly.
or where you put your money, because you'll always feel like, oh, on edge, right?
Mhm.
But if you know my emergency bucket has the amount of money that I need to feel comfortable, you go and you have confidence to go do other things.
Exactly. So let me see. Once someone has their their budget in place and they're paying down their debt, the next steps to start building real wealth. I feel like that is a very open-ended question, because there's probably so many different directions you can go with that. I guess it depends on the person. I mean, maybe we can use me as an example.
Yeah. So like someone like you, right? That that's into like the real estate investing world and those types of things. Like once you have your retirement, or you're not retired, once you have your emergency fund kind of filled, the next bucket that in your we would want to start filling for you is that what I call the midterm bucket. And that is a bucket that you can use for a lot of different things. You can use it for invest. This is money that you can actually invest too, but
Mhm.
using it for um, like a down payment on a home, a car, vacations, those types of things, right? Because your emergency bucket is for emergencies,
Yes.
right?
And you should not take that out.
And be like, oh,
Samantha, you should not book yourself a cruise from the emergency
Yes,
bucket.
this bucket would be something like that. So the reason we start building that second bucket like that is because as if we can put layers of protection between you and your retirement accounts, the better, because the last thing you want to do is dip into those types of accounts, because
Mhm.
that's where you get penalties and
Yeah.
all the taxes and all the stuff, all the bad things,
Yeah.
right? So when we're talking about building wealth, the next step is like, okay, I've taken care of my immediate, the stuff that could happen in a year. What's the stuff that could happen in the next 3 to 5 years that I'm going to need money for,
Right.
right? You build that up, then you can build up your retirement.
Okay. So for someone who might be listening in this, and maybe they're feeling a bit overwhelmed, they're like, "Oh my gosh, buckets, I don't have it." Like, what would you say to somebody who is feeling completely lost in their finances right now? What's the best place to start?
Yeah, the first place to start is to realize that's a normal feeling. Like most people
Yes.
that I sit down with are completely disorganized when it comes to their finances. You come to me
Wow.
to help you organize your finances. And that's really the first step, is we have to know what we're looking at. When you have things all scattered about, you get overwhelmed because you're like, well, what does this account do? And what is this money over here for? And what happens is you get overwhelmed. And when we get overwhelmed, you just say, oh, I'll just figure this out later, right? I don't have time for this. And then what happens? 5 years goes, and you're like, oh, I still don't have much, right? Like I still don't have all this stuff,
Are you
right?
coming at me right now?
Maybe it's a little bit of a pet talk, but so realize that that feeling is very natural, and to not be afraid of it, but question, how can I not feel this anymore? And so if we can organize your finances, that can begin to tell us the story, and help you rewrite that story.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I would say the second place to start would be, after you realize all of that, give Billy a call, have your consultation session with him. I mean, honestly, what do you have to lose? That's where I was at. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna waste this man's time today because what do I have to lose? He wants to, well, let's see if he can fix this.
Yeah. It's almost like competition. You're like, all right, yeah, game on. You got it.
Oh my gosh. No, I love it. What are some common mistakes you think that people make when trying to grow their money or invest, build their wealth?
Yeah. I think people a big mistake that I see people make, and it really doesn't have a lot to do with the number side of things. It's more of a mentality and mindset. And the first mistake I see people make is that they think they have to do it all on their own. That they, and I see this a lot with my clients that I work with. They feel like I have to do it all my own. I have to prove that I can do this. That's the first mistake because that leads to being burnt out and overwhelmed, and you end up not doing anything. Right.
Yeah.
Another thing is listening to everybody else and not listening to yourself, because if your why is not clear, then anything that comes your way seems like a good idea. Like if you're like you'll be influenced by quick things, right? And I always like kind of tie in like losing weight and like getting better at your finances. Like you didn't gain all that weight overnight, and you're not going to lose all that weight overnight.
Right.
And it's going to take steps, right? You have to go to the gym. You have to start walking. You have to start lifting weights. You have to start eating better, right? It's little things that you do. That's the habits, the tasks that you do daily that are going to lead to those results.
Yeah.
I think people get so like looking at the big picture,
yeah,
that we don't take time to look at, all right, what's the first step that I take? Let me just do that. Like
yeah.
I don't even know what the first step I need to take is. I think it's talk to Billy. I'm going to take that step.
Yeah.
And now look where we're at. Versus like, if you've never taken that step, like you said, not taking action, you would have been in the same exact boat that you are now, or that you were then.
Exactly. So and I don't know, like, if you can answer this question or not, but like, I was wondering, because I know I mean, obviously you work with some men too as well, right? So like, I was wondering if you notice a difference in working with men versus working with women, and if you see more limiting beliefs in women, what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Men and women definitely think differently about money. Where men, and obviously me being a guy, we tend to think of like the more external things about life, like what we can get with money and stuff like that, where women tend to be more internal, like who can I help with my money?
Yeah.
Right? And so their motivations are different than some men that I talk to. They're more in tune with what their emotions are, right? When it comes to money. So the big thing is like the motivations behind what they want to accomplish with their money. So that would probably be the biggest difference that I see. There's some other nuanced differences, but like the if I had to just say one big thing, it was like, what's the intention with my money? So
no, that makes sense. Okay, well, we've covered a lot so far. This is a goodie. What's your take? What are you going to say to the people that think that they need to be like in a certain position or good with money or have savings or whatever before they talked with you?
Yeah. So I say this very often, and I think I can answer that in this one phrase that I say to all my clients, regardless of their financial status, whether they make, $500,000 a year, or they make $50,000 a year, or whatever, right? Whatever their income is. I believe no matter who you are, what walk of life you come from, your story, your past, for me, there's no shame, there's no blame in that case. I believe that everyone deserves the right to have a financial plan, like to have a financial kind of plan to tell them what to do, how to improve their situation. So, because I remember the first time I walked into an advisor's office and I didn't have $250,000 to invest. I was 22 years old.
Yeah.
Like I barely had any money.
What made you walk into what made you?
I just knew that I wanted to be better with money, and
Yeah.
I knew, like we talked about before, the traditional ways of learning about money. Back then, I'm about to be 38. Like the technology was not what it was today, right? We didn't
Yeah.
have like the Googles and stuff of the world. And so I walked into that office like confident, like, oh, I'm going to get help. And then to walk out of that office discouraged because I wasn't in a place. That person didn't see value in me because of what I had in my bank account.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that you're
I think
never going
that's
to
what
get.
a lot of people are afraid of.
Yeah.
They're like, why would I go to this financial advisor? What's he going to make off me? I can't even make no money off me.
Yeah. And that's where, like I said, what I love about my process and what we're going to figure all that stuff out. Like we'll figure out if it makes sense for us to work together. We're going to figure out a way to work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be a no from me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to help people. But yeah, if I were to answer that question with one phrase, it would be that no matter your situation, you deserve to have a financial plan where you can better yourself and better your situation.
That's my favorite thing about you. Seriously. Because not everybody thinks like that, and people need to hear that.
Yeah.
Like I needed to hear that. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like these kids tomorrow, they need to hear these things. Like just because this is, you come from whatever you come from does not mean that's how life has to be. It's not
doesn't have to be your story.
Does not has to be you can literally rewrite it, like every single paragraph. I really appreciate your time today. I want to, I guess, leave the audience. If you could give one piece of advice to someone feeling stuck financially, what would it be?
Yeah, I would tell you to take that step, right? There's a difference between confidence and courage. Courage is stepping into something even though you're very fearful of what you're stepping into. You get confidence from the courage that it took for you to take that step. So take that step today. Have the conversation, regardless of how you feel about your finances. Even if you think you feel good about it, like take that step because you don't want to go down the route of 5, 10 years from now and be that person that says, I wish I would have did this sooner. Mm-hmm. Promise you won't regret taking that first initial step. You will regret not taking it. So take that step, get organized, have the conversation, find somebody that you can trust, whether that's me, great. If it's not, find somebody to have that conversation with, because if you don't change, nothing will change, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think, we've obviously focused a lot this episode on people like us, like from, the things we come from, right? But I mean, even if you are in a position where you feel like you're, semi-confident in your financial position or what you're making or what you're investing, you can always be better. Things are always changing. And it's your job to stay on top of all of those things. So like, I mean, this has been such an eye-opening conversation. Where can people connect with you if they do want to start with their own financial journey?
Yeah. The best way to reach me is, well, you can find me on social media. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram at the Money Talk Advisor. LinkedIn on there as well. Or the best way to reach me is you can email me, billy@terrawealth.com is a really good way to get a hold of me. Or they can reach directly out to you, and you can definitely.
I was going to say, or even better, I'll put you on a text thread with my man. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone who has tuned in for our third episode. Please, if you enjoyed it, leave some feedback. Go and follow Billy, even if you're, not quite ready to take that leap right now. I guarantee just watching what he does and some of the things he puts out and the things he is educating people on, you will feel encouraged to start your journey. So, all right. Have a good day.